listen to reason? Will you open your eyes? It's a wonder what you'll find with an open mind. You may be surprised. Yeah. Gotta get away from this illusion for the sake of the world. This delusion has gotta go.
Hi everybody, and welcome to the Atheist Experience. I'm Jen Peeples, your host for this episode. It's Sunday, April 22nd, and with me today is the one and only Martin Wagner.
That's it. I'm the only one. Okay.
The Atheist Experience is a live call-in TV show sponsored by the Atheist Community of Austin, a 501c3 nonprofit educational organization. The ACA hosts a number of events throughout the week, including a weekly web radio show, easy for me to say, The Nonprofits, and a weekly podcast, The Godless Bitches, which presents atheism from a feminist perspective. You've got the addresses there under the screen. We also have a happy hour at Dog and Duck Pub every Thursday at 7 p.m. and a lecture series on the first Sunday of every month at the Austin History Museum, except for May. May is when we have our annual elections. So if you are a member of the Atheist Community of Austin, please plan to attend the May elections in lieu of lecture and vote. And speaking of ACA membership, if you have not updated your membership, it's time. All memberships expire at the end of February. So please plan to renew your membership so you can vote in the next election. And of course, we have our other Sunday activities, which includes a brunch at Cafe Express and our dinner after the show at El Arroyo. We will be going to El Arroyo approximately 6 p.m. tonight after the show. So if you are an atheist or atheist-friendly person in the Austin area, please plan to join us for dinner. And you can find out more information about our activities by visiting our website at www.atheist-community.org. And that completes our announcements for now.
Yeah, I think we should do one more announcement, though,
Okay.
just for general purposes, because you've probably noticed this, and I've certainly been noticing it. So this should just go out to everyone. And if there's one part of this show that you take a clip out of, make it this part. We do not, at this show, have an official Atheist Experience YouTube channel. We don't have one. And the reason I bring this up is because we have lately, it's almost been daily, like between the Facebook page and our emails, TV show emails, people are like, you banned me from your YouTube channel and you suck and blah, 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 and crying about that. We don't run a YouTube channel. We archive all of our stuff at Blip.tv, right?
Yep.
Yeah, and whatever you see of ours on YouTube was put there by fans. There is an actual Atheist Experience fan channel that calls itself that. The words fan channel are right there on the tin. So if you're having problems with them and they ban you and that's your drama, it's really nothing to do with us. We love that fans put our videos up on YouTube. I mean, that's why we kind of have been able to build our viewership globally like we have. But if you've been blocked from YouTube, it wasn't us, so please don't send us the drama emails about how unfair and censorious we were.
Yeah. And
so.
And if you do feel the need to contact us in lieu of the guy that actually runs the YouTube channel because he blocked you or whatever, we don't really care what your YouTube handle is or anything like that. We don't need a link to the YouTube video unless it's something directly referencing what you have to say. So anyway, we'd just prefer that you didn't complain to us about the YouTube channel because we can't help you.
Yeah.
Okay. So
just thought I would throw that out there as general information because apparently it's not getting out.
Yeah.
So.
Well, we've got some callers in the queue, but before we get there, I wanted to present a little moment of science here. So everybody put your seatbelt on. We're going to do science here. It's actually from Science Magazine. I have a paper that was published in the March 30th edition of Science Magazine. And it's got a title that will probably make it sound boring, but hopefully I can make it sound a little more appealing here. The title is U-238, U-235, Systematics in Terrestrial Uranium-Bearing Minerals. Okay, so what's the point of that and why would I bring it up? Well, This is the kind of paper that creationists point to and say, see, scientists don't know anything and you can't use radiometric dating because it's not accurate. The point here is that uranium is the heaviest naturally occurring metal on the planet, and it's extremely useful for geochronology. Basically, you've got two isotopes here, U-238 and 235, that decay to two different isotopes of lead. And so we can use these isotopes for dating things from between like 1 million and about 4.5 billion years. So that's basically the age of the Earth there. And it provides a useful check for some other radiometric dating methods. What this paper does is it explains that historically scientists have assumed that the ratios of these two isotopes have been invariant, so it didn't matter where you found them, that those ratios should be the same at the beginning. And what they found out is that that's not actually true. There are some mechanisms that can cause the ratio to be a little bit different. And using this information, they've actually improved the accuracy of this radiometric dating procedure. So to kind of put that in a nutshell, we've gone from like a window of uncertainty of about this big to a window of uncertainty of about this big. So it's actually gotten better. If a creationist reads this, they're probably going to misunderstand it, and they're going to say, yeah, that means that this isn't accurate.
Yeah, like they did like a paper recently, you know, talking about gorilla DNA and sort of like that.
Right.
They always tend to look at these papers and they claim that the papers actually say the opposite of what they really do say. But it's also another example of how science actually works, as opposed to pseudosciences like creationism or what have you.
Yeah.
New discovery comes along and scientists are like, oops, we've been doing it wrong.
Yeah.
We need to like change our minds.
Yeah.
And we need to adapt it to the new findings, and then we need to find out what we have to revise everything.
Yeah.
And
so this has
that's very different
like
from, you know, the dogmatic mindset.
pictures of, you know, how things have improved and, you know, what the data scatter looks like, and all kinds of stuff that scientists use to assess the accuracy of this. And it kind of brings up another thing is that, you know, we do have some uncertainty about things. Our uncertainty is very low.
We always have uncertainty about things, yeah.
And one of the points here is that the uncertainty for measurements for this particular method is about 0.1%. So that's about the variation we have on there. Just to give you a little ballpark estimate there, for 1 million years, if we're dating something out to 1 million years, that's an uncertainty of only about 1,000 years. Okay, and I know that creationists will say that those genealogies that they use to date the Earth to 6,000 years old from the Old Testament, you know, those are, you know, absolutely correct, zero uncertainty. But who are you going to believe? The
well, you don't.
scientists that can
It's not even a
quantify
matter of that.
those guys?
It's understanding that. You know, I always tend to find that it's believers, that it's creationists or evangelical, just Christians, whatever have you. Religious-minded people are very hung up on this concept of absolutes, this notion of absolutes as being a vitally important thing. But science doesn't promise absolutes.
Right.
And if it did, that would be the one reason to really, really mistrust it. You can get findings down to an extremely high degree of certainty. Like it's far, far more likely for, you know, these findings to be correct than it is to be incorrect. But absolutes are just not a thing that science deals in. And but religion, you know, insists upon them. And then they complain that the reason that you know, the scientific viewpoint can't be trusted is because it isn't out there handing you absolutes. Right. And that's really kind of a 180-degree level of misunderstanding as to, you know, how these methods of obtaining knowledge that we use, you know, methods of inquiry, are more trustworthy rather than not. Right. So.
I agree.
So that's that.
All right. So, you ready to go to calls?
I'm ready to go to calls. Let's go to calls. Calls are fun.
Let's go to line 1. We have Bobby from Los Angeles. Hi, Bobby.
Hey, hi.
How you doing?
Hey, Martin.
Okay.
Basically, calling back again. I spoke with Martin after the show and a couple episodes ago. You remember?
Yeah, vaguely. We have to unpack very quickly after the show, so we didn't get to talk very long if we did talk. So.
Yeah, we did talk a little bit. I think it's very appropriate that you're wearing the shirt that says, I choose reason, because that's exactly what we talked about.
Okay.
If you don't recall, I said reason is your God, and then you said, no, reason is a tool.
Correct.
Yes.
And actually, I also, to talk about the YouTube thing and experience with YouTube, I had a big problem with YouTube because a lot of atheists are going at me, and there's a video, that exact video is actually the featured video of YouTube. It says, God exists just like Darth Vader. And it's a big joke on the internet, but that was exactly my point that I was trying to make, those 2 minutes that I called after the show that day, is when I spoke to you and...
okay, well, what is the point that you'd like to make today, or what's the question that you have for us today?
Just in the same thought process, if reason is a tool, then who handed down this tool to you to use without permission? It's not Darth Vader, right?
Well, why assume that the tool was handed to us by someone? Why do you assume that it was a thing that was given? Because
we humble ourselves, and we use the word God as means to show that we don't understand.
Well, we don't use the word. We don't use the word God to show that we don't understand. When we don't understand a thing, what we say is, we don't understand this thing. Let's learn more about it.
Okay.
And that is the application of reason to a problem.
If you're trying to use atheism to approach and make religions like Christianity sound ridiculous, then that's fine. Atheism is...
Well, we don't use atheism for that purpose either.
Look,
here's what you're misunderstanding. Atheism is simply a response to theistic claims, right?
Okay.
What that is to say, well, no, let me clarify for you, Bobby, because you have a lot of confusion about these concepts. We hear, and it's not just from Christians, but anyone at all, could make a claim to us about a thing, right? Let's not even talk about gods or demons or heaven or hell or what that. Let's just say Loch Ness Monster, right? Okay, we'll just pick a random thing. Someone who believes in the existence of this thing gives us their position. They give us their reasons for believing it. They give us whatever evidence that they think they have, and we evaluate that, right? And we look at it, and then after evaluating it, we make a decision as to whether or not it is credible. In other words, is any of this, or is this claim worthy of belief based upon the arguments, the evidence, the reasoning, the rationale that I'm being given by the person who does believe in it? Is this sufficient for me to decide, yes, this is a claim that I can consider a true claim worthy of belief? If the answer to that is yes, then fine. But if the answer to that is no, then okay. And I base that upon what I hear and then my evaluation of what I hear. So to be an atheist simply means that we have listened to claims about gods from people who believe in gods. We have listened to the claims. We have listened to their reasons that they give us for believing in gods. And we've thought about it and evaluated it and decided, all right, well, we don't agree. We don't believe in that claim. We don't share your belief in God. And that's all atheism is. Beyond that, atheism isn't a thing that you use to then go on and attempt to make religions ridiculous or something like that. I mean, if at any point and you do see a lot of these arguments between theists and atheists, and the atheists are, ridiculing the theistic beliefs, but that's simply because that's all by way of being a response to what we're hearing. When a creationist comes up with, these wacky notions like, dinosaurs eating coconuts and vapor canopies and what have you, well, they are ridiculous. So that's the response to that. But it's not an act of using atheism to make the religious belief seem ridiculous. I mean, theism.
I didn't want to go there today. Okay. I'm not talking about that.
Okay.
That atheism is a religion.
Well, it's just a common confusion, so that's why I wanted to bring it up, because you seem to be not clear on it.
Well, I do agree that we're not supposed to make people a standard. Automobiles can be standardized, but not people. Then that's fine. But what I mean is, I'm calling today to talk about the same line of thinking. Let me ask you this premise. Do you agree that there is structure in the laws of the universe?
There is structure? Well, what do you mean by structure?
Of the universe.
What do you mean by that?
Yeah. I mean...
anything like gravity or two clouds colliding and creating a lightning.
Clouds colliding.
It's not how lightning works, but point. Are there natural laws that exist by which, under which things in our universe, what we call natural laws? In other words, are there conditions that exist in the universe that we can find inconsistent? Yes, that is the case.
So conditions, can we just call it structure?
Well,
we don't want to call it structure.
Well, the natural laws exist. We can agree on that.
The word structure as a form of a metaphor, like the word reason is a form of a metaphor.
Well, reason's not a metaphor. That actually means something.
Is in the laws of the universe. Can
but I mean, again, you're making a lot of sort of wrong equivocations here. But yeah, okay, let's say that there's structure to the universe. Fine. Okay, let's move on. So from that, you deduce what?
To give you a physical example that God exists, right?
Well, but we're waiting for you to kind of bridge that gap. If you want to get from structure
right now, I'm telling you that
structure to if there's structure in the universe to a God exists.
I cannot build you the structure of the universe to prove you that there's a God. I cannot build that structure for you, and you realize that.
Well, wait a minute. How does the existence of natural laws point to a God?
How does it? Well, it's the same way as science works. They just take a sample of the whole thing, and then they make their conclusions and say, okay, well, it must be like this. That's our theory. It cannot be proven wrong until it's proven right.
No. My question is very specific. How does the existence of a natural law point to a God?
Okay. So
F equals MA. How do you get a God from that?
This is where we differ, and we're not going to reach, again, we're not going to reach a higher level of understanding. It's just me humbling myself.
Please stop.
You know what? I don't understand it, and
you're right. You don't.
Okay. Yeah.
And I would rather call it God, and I take on this journey of finding out what God is through science or through self-understanding or whatever.
Yeah, see, there's just basic concepts that you're not understanding, Bobby.
I'm taking the liberty to humble myself and say,
okay, well, let's stop with that, okay? Because you're not humbling yourself, okay? You are not humbling yourself when you decide, I'm going to make up a thing and decide that that's my answer and feel justified in that. First, okay, that's not an act of humbling yourself. But secondly, again, you're confusing you're conflating beliefs with knowledge. The idea that how do we distinguish? How do we
I'm not saying that I believe.
No, Bobby, listen.
That,
Bobby, we're going to put you on hold if you don't
talk back to me. I don't think that.
Okay.
I don't think that.
Bobby, it's what you just said.
There's an invisible entity on my shoulder, and we converse. And if you don't pay him money, he's gonna, do.
Bobby, I don't care about what specific concept of God you believe in. What we're talking about are on general principles. How do you distinguish an idea that you've got in your head that is a thing that you simply believe versus something that you can actually confirm? In other words, what method do you use? What tool? All things being equal, right? In life, we, just in order to get through life from day to day, need to have some sort of process, some kind of method, some kind of technique that we employ in order to distinguish true claims from false claims. We hear claims all the time. So how do you distinguish between ones that are true and ones that are false? When you are looking to buy a car, right? How do you distinguish someone says, I have a really great used car to sell you? How do you distinguish between whether or not that person is really telling the truth or lying to you? How do you distinguish between whether or not it really is a great used car or if it's a total lemon that's going to break down in a week? Where do you see? We have to have a process by which we understand. And just thinking, well, I like this because it sounds good to me, can and pretty much almost always does lead you down the wrong path, right? Because you can decide that, just because a belief sounds good, if you adopt that as a true thing and then it turns out not to really be the true thing, well, then where are you left? I think you're sort of left in a state of confusion. You're left in a state where, now you'll be making bad decisions in your life based upon having accepted something that you didn't really confirm was true.
All I'm confirming is that there's a structure and...
Right, and beyond that statement, what can you say about the fact that we can observe structure in the universe I mean, just based on that, I mean, that is the only, that really just tells you, yes, there's structure in the universe. But now, if you want to get to why there is structure in the universe, that's an entirely different question. So there's the observation. We observe that there's structure in the universe, that there are natural laws, that things in the observable universe seem to follow. So now, in order to get from there to what is the cause of all of that, now there is a gap that we have to bridge in order to get from what we see to what we want to decide is the cause for what we see. Okay?
Well,
and it's this part in the middle that's the important part.
Look, I want to say this. If I may quote some people...
do you understand what I'm telling you, though, about how we bridge the gap? Do you at least understand what I'm trying to explain to you with that?
Yeah, it's a leap of faith. And
no, see, that's where you're missing the boat. There are two ways to do it. One is to take the leap of faith, and one is to say, okay, guy who wants to sell me this big used car, shut up and take my money, right? You know, here I don't need to test drive it. I will take you at your word. I don't even need to see the car. Just bring it over to my house, leave it in my driveway. I'll meet you with the cash up front. There you go, right? Or there's that, which is taking the leap of faith. Or there is, well, before I choose to buy this used car from you, do I have a mechanic look it over? Do I check out its maintenance history? Do I take it for a test drive?
We're not dealing with physical...
Yes, we are. Yes, we are. You are trying to find an explanation for physical constants in the universe.
You know, the structures of the universe are invisible, like the laws of gravity is invisible.
No, the structures of the universe are things that we can observe.
I'm sorry. Okay. It manifests in the ways of planets orbiting each other. Okay.
Yeah. These are physical properties of the universe.
Appear in front of you, just like you can construct a car.
Wait, say that again. Say that again.
Can I make the structure of the laws of the universe into an actual structure and make it appear in front of you, just like
wait a
cars?
minute.
See, now
the laws of the universe. Do you understand what scientific laws are?
Are you implying that I don't understand what scientific laws are?
Yes, I am.
Yeah.
Why are you implying that I don't understand what scientific laws are?
Because you seem very confused. So tell me what your understanding of scientific laws are. What do you think they are?
It's a structure. It's something to as far as the science can reveal it.
No, stop.
Okay.
Scientific laws, natural laws, are observations about how things actually work.
Exactly, observation. That's my point.
Well,
the idea of God for me is an observation, and it started off with cavemen looking at the sky and hearing a thunder, calling it tengri. Now in English it's called thunder, and calling it the voice of God.
Yeah, but you know what? What has happened since
the voice of God is actually a sound produced by a lightning.
Yeah, what happened?
We still can't explain what is it that makes this structure of electricity's two electric charged clouds.
Well, yeah. In point of fact, electricity is an understood natural phenomenon.
We're still left with that, and we call that God now. I mean, that's just.
No, we don't.
No, we don't.
No.
You might call it God, but you're wrong.
Yes. You see, we only see. What has to use the example that you use?
Okay. Off when we were
Bobby, we're going to put you on pause. Okay.
Okay. You're on hold now, Bobby.
Yeah. Here's how it works, Bobby. What happened, to use your own example, what happened in the intervening time from the time when primitive man looked up at the sky and saw lightning and thought it was an angry God being all pissed off and punishing people, from that period in history to today? What happened was we developed the tools that I just described to you, bridging the gap between what's observed and finding out the cause of what's observed. Okay? Before there was the leap of faith, going from, I see lightning, God's pissed, to, I see lightning, what's causing the lightning? Let's figure it out. And we observe and we learn actual facts. And what happens when we learn actual facts, okay, is that the God explanation is now no longer applicable. It gets thrown out because it wasn't needed, or because it was incorrect, because there was a perfectly natural explanation for the phenomenon. And that's where you're conflating these two things. You think that this process of actually filling the gaps in our knowledge with observation and testing and repeating these observations and testing and independently confirming all this stuff is no different than going, I see structure in the universe, therefore God. And yet there's a vast difference. They could not possibly be two more greatly opposed methods
And
of thinking about
our
things.
understanding
So-
of the universe and anything in it has never been improved by saying God did it and leaving it at that. And
So do you see what we're explaining to you?
I think I brought him back, or did I? Here.
Hello?
Hi.
Hello?
Yeah,
Okay.
I'm on hold or no?
Not anymore.
No, not anymore.
We had to put you on hold because you know.
I'm wild. Okay,
No,
I'm
you
sorry.
just-
That's just the
Okay.
God speaking in me. But no, what I want to say is this. All you said right now, all of this on hold thing that you were talking about is telling me one thing only, and that is that we don't have the technology to explain the structure of the universe entirely, or how did
But
don't-
so what? But
I
that's,
don't think you'll
come
get.
to existence?
I
Like,
don't
what
think
is
you'll-
the
I don't-
intention of
Bobby.
the laws of the universe? Is there
Bobby.
an intention? Is there such thing as an intention?
yeah. And
There's no evidence that there's an intention in the universe. But regarding your claim that we don't have the technology to explain everything, I don't think you'll find a single scientist out there that claims otherwise.
Well, I can
But-
tell you this from a scientist, and it's a very famous scientist, and he keeps saying the same thing over and over
Okay.
again.
There we go.
You got
What
about
people
1 minute.
Is the
Okay.
pursuit of science becomes convinced that the spirit is manifested in the laws of the universe, a spirit vastly superior to that of man, and one in the face of which we, with our modest powers, must feel humble. And if it's just the act of being humble that you say there is a God, then you can't separate the wisdom of theism from the strong claim that there is a God. The only thing is that you prove that
Yeah.
you don't believe in a personal God, and you've never denied this, but something in which you call religious is the unbound admiration for the structure of the
Okay.
world.
Yeah,
and
yeah.
as far as science
Yeah, we've
can
heard this
reveal
one.
it.
Yeah.
Again, the point is, there are religious scientists in the world, but again, it's immaterial, right? The fact that science doesn't know 100% of everything with absolute certainty is not in and of itself justification for leaping to a God. Even if every single scientific principle, every scientific law, every fact that we thought that we knew about the structure of our universe was demonstrated to be wrong tomorrow, that does not get us any closer to, is there a God who is doing all of this with intent? That would still be a claim for which we would have to use the scientific method to find the evidence for. So I think you're conflating a lot of basic
If
concepts.
science knew what they were doing, it wouldn't be called research. It would be called, something else. They don't know what they're doing. They're just doing research. And
Well, yeah, doing research is kind of all
That's a-
about knowing what you're knowing what you're doing.
That's adding to
Okay.
the body
Yeah.
of knowledge.
Yeah.
So
another
and
thing
again,
about
and it's
scientists,
not-
they're
so-
all religious because they believe that the structure of the universe will remain the way it is, and it will not collapse.
Okay, Bobby, now you're being silly, and you're
Yeah.
done. Okay,
Yeah.
we've got other callers, so
Yeah, we
you
can't
can
give you
call
half
back
the show
another
yet.
time.
Yeah.
So thanks for the call.
Fine. You find these false equivalencies made all the time, and
Yeah.
a lot of it's just very obvious. Basic concepts he doesn't really grasp, right?
Yeah.
You can't just simply
Yeah.
go from here's an observed fact leap to a God.
Well, I especially like the, tell me what you think the natural laws are, followed by dead silence.
Yeah,
And-
well, because that kind of demonstrated. I mean, right there, until you know, this whole thing about knowing what you're talking about, right?
Yeah.
Scientifically illiterate people shouldn't lecture on how science works. Just kind of,
Okay.
let's move on.
Okay, all right, so I think we have Ray in Tacoma. Did I say that right?
Ray, are you on?
Are you
Are we line 2?
on line 2?
Have we lost Ray?
Oh,
Try again. Maybe.
Okay.
I don't know.
all right, I'll put him back on hold. We'll go to, or no, actually, that was Dave in Berkeley that we had on line 2. Let's go to line 4 here.
Oh, okay.
Okay.
That's Ray.
There we go. That's Ray.
Our numbers are confused.
Am I?
Oh, that's me. Am I live?
You're live.
Hi, but you're really,
Okay.
you're very filtered. Kind of hard to hear.
Oh, okay. Hi. Is it better?
Yeah,
Yeah, that's better. You're fine.
you're fine.
Okay, hi. I'm a theist that wanted to keep an open mind to everything, and I challenged myself to study science in order to seek the truth about our world. And the more I have learned, the more science reinforces my belief that God has created everything within our solar neighborhood.
Okay.
And as I understood, in Christianity, Jesus has performed some unbelievable feats, such as turning water into wine, summoning bread to feed people, resurrection, right? That's pretty impressive list, but...
yeah, if there was a shred of true evidence that anything, if that was anything other than legend, sure, it would be very impressive.
Right. My God provides shelter, food, water for all life since the beginning of creation.
Okay.
It sacrificed itself and reincarnated likely 3 times in the process of the act of creation, and it also has the ability to destroy the earth, and will use the ability when the time is right.
Okay, well, that's,
all right, well, that's great, but what's the evidence for these claims?
Okay, well, I consider such being a god, right? But not only because my God has amazing feats. Here's I'm revealing my God. I make a case for it. I'm a sun worshipper, and for several other reasons that other than the feats. First of all, I can see the sun, unlike some of the other gods that I could mention. I can actually see the sun, and I'm big on that. If I can see something, it kind of helped with the credibilities along. So every day I can see the sun as it gives me everything I need. Heat, light, food, flowers in the park, reflections on the lake, and occasional skin cancer. But hey, at least there are no crucifixions.
Okay, so you
are not setting people on fire.
So you think the sun? You think the sun is a god then?
No, I'm going to give you the proof, right? So,
okay.
I argue that my God has created everything in the solar neighborhood, including us. So let's take human as an example. So if you would...
I'm not sure why you feel it's necessary to refer to the sun. I mean, you can if you like, but why think of the sun as a god? I mean, okay, you can say, you know, you're just coming up with a different way to define the sun, or a different name for the sun.
Oh, do you mean then there are no intelligence in the sun? Is that what you're getting at?
Is there intelligence in the sun? Because that would be kind of cool.
Okay, here, let me, before I give you the proof.
The sun's intelligent. The sun is an entity.
If you look at the closest genetic relative to human being, the chimpanzees, we share like 98% identical DNA. We are smarter than a chimpanzee. Let's invent a measure of intelligence that will make human unique.
Yeah, but I'm still trying to, like, how do we...
Intelligence is the ability to compose poetry, symphonies, do arts, math, and science.
Stop. Okay, so let's stop you right there, because you sound like you're reading, mainly. But here's... All right, so if these are certain criteria that we can apply to determine intelligence, okay, let me see where I think you're going with this. If we are products of the sun, and if we are intelligent beings, and if we do things like create poetry and have television shows and stuff have you, then if the sun created us, then the sun must be intelligent in order to have created our intelligence. Is that where you, okay, because I've heard that one before, and so if you're not going, so how does any of this, so how does anything that what you're saying point to the sun being an intelligent creative agency?
Well, the proof of that is the sun gives us food, water, shelter.
Well, the sun doesn't actually give us those things. You understand that?
Ultimately,
you want me to prove it?
Ultimately, the sun is just an energy source.
Yeah, I mean, the sun makes it possible. The sun is a thing that makes it possible for stuff like food to grow and what have you, right? But in terms of like, you seem to be referring to this kind of you're anthropomorphizing the sun. I don't know if if you know what that means, but it's like you're giving human qualities to a thing that, for all we know, is just a big nuclear reactor in space, right? I mean, it does stuff. There are results that come as, you know, based on the stuff that it does, the energy that it sends out, bombards our planet. Some of it's helpful, some of it's very harmful. If we didn't have an ozone layer, all this great stuff that you credit the sun with doing for us would, in fact, you know, barbecue us and irradiate us and kill us very badly. So it's... I just don't see where you're getting the justification for saying that the sun is an intelligent, creative entity, other than just a desire to put a face on things, which is what religion any religion has been doing all through history, right? I mean, that's kind of what it's all about. Humans observe this vast universe around us. It's big, it's black, it's empty, it's scary. So we attach a human face to the universe, and we call it God, and thereby we make the universe less vast and empty and big and scary and impersonal. We feel less alone by doing that. So how is this any different?
Well, I was trying to make a case about intelligence, but I was kind of interrupted, but I can see your points. But my case will address that point that you were saying. Should I proceed or?
Well, be very brief. You've got about probably another minute here.
Oh, only another minute. Okay. So that 1% DNA difference between humans and chimp. Let's say that we use that 1%, we construct the Hubble telescope, and we launch it into space. Now imagine there is another being that is 1% different from us in the direction that we are different from the chimps. Now think about that. We have 1% difference, and we are building the Hubble telescope. Go another 1%, 10%, 100%. What are we to it? We'll be drooling, blistering idiots in its presence. That's what we'll be. Now, the notion that we are going to have a conversation, intelligent conversation with the God, when was the last time any one of us stopped and have a conversation with a worm or a bird?
I've never had a conversation with the sun, but if you think the sun is that much more intelligent than we are, and that it's some kind of God or creative entity out there, then how are you coming up with this information? I mean, how are you? What's your justification for claiming that it's a God?
The justification, you mean the logical proofs that I come to the conclusion that God is
I don't need logical proofs. I just want to know, what's your justification for claiming that the sun is some kind of intelligent entity?
It provides energy, it provides food, it provides...
Okay. Now here's another really important question. What's your justification for calling this show and pretending to be a theist who worships the sun?
Justification?
Yeah.
Well, worshipping the sun is not a religion.
No, it doesn't, again...
That wasn't the question. The question is, what's your justification for calling this show and pretending that you worship the sun?
On what ground do you think that I am pretending?
Because this is too silly.
You dismissed this notion because it's too silly?
It is far too silly.
Yeah, I don't really know how...
Into conclusions.
Yeah, you are far too silly to be for real.
Yeah.
Sorry, not buying it. You're done.
Yeah. And even if it is real, you can make the point that he just attempted to make like this comparison between the difference between us and the worms, and so and this is supposedly analogous to us versus a god. Well, even then that would render the whole point irrelevant.
Yeah.
Because it's sort of like worms aren't out there comprehending us, or at least worshiping us, or at least thinking that there is something like us out there to look up to.
Yeah.
So, if we are unto the gods as the worms are unto us, then gods are incomprehensible to us, and therefore, why bother? So.
Yeah.
It's kind of not a very good analogy that helped his point. But yeah, I'm not quite sure.
Guys, we don't really need fake theists calling up the show, and if you're going to be a Poe, at least be a good one.
Yeah, that may or may not have been the case. I think he may have just been trying to make points and not making them very articulately. But who knows? But it wasn't going anywhere. So
that's even more silly than the ancient astronaut guys that. Anyway.
Well, let's find someone that we can get somewhere.
Yeah, let's talk to Dave in Berkeley.
Hello there.
Hi,
Dave.
How are you doing?
Hi.
Thanks for waiting.
By the way, with respect to the previous caller, I assume that if he believes that the sun is a god because it, causes things to grow and whatever, then I guess grow lights, making marijuana grow would also be a god.
They're little demigods, yeah.
Yeah, little mini gods.
Yeah.
Anyway, I'm calling because I called about 1 or 2 months ago and talked with, I think it was Russell, and I tried to make the point that in the Bible, in Mark chapter 7, verses 9 through 13, Jesus in my analysis, is essentially supporting the killing of children that are abusive to their parents. And Russell said, no, you're taking it out of context. And so I didn't want to be combative, so I hung up. But then I emailed. And I finally, I believe, got an answer back from Matt. And Matt pulled a fallacy on me, which I was really surprised at, because he said it's kind of like the reverse appeal to authority. He said, I don't know of any theologians or any philosophers that support your position. Okay.
Yeah. Well,
you know,
Okay, now
Yeah.
there's
Go ahead.
an appeal to authority, and
Right.
then there's the appeal to authority fallacy, okay?
that's right.
If the person is an actual authority, then it's not a fallacy to appeal to that authority.
Well, what I consider is he appealed to the lack of authority.
Okay.
He said, I don't know of any philosophers that support your position. So he dismissed me, you know, but by not addressing my argument. But
well,
just
he addressed it simply.
by saying, you know, I don't know of anybody.
Yeah.
And so what I did, well, anyway, so what I did is I went on the internet and I found that Richard Dawkins supports my position. I emailed a YouTuber named Prof MTH, and he emailed back to me, which
Oh, well,
I was.
YouTuber.
Say again.
Yeah.
Oh, well, if it's on YouTube.
Yeah. We
Right.
tend
Anyway,
to shirk
the whole thing
YouTube
is,
debates.
I really would like to address this because I think it's an important point. Theists dismiss the Old Testament by saying, well, Jesus, you know, swept all that away, except of course the ones they want, like, you know, the Ten Commandments.
And except for the fact that in the New Testament, Jesus says, I have not come to overthrow the old laws.
And he said, yeah, that also, right?
Yeah.
But this one was where he, in his own words, he is essentially referencing the Leviticus and I think it's Deuteronomy law that says that a child that's abusive to the parents must be put to death.
The stone disobedient children.
That's right.
Yeah.
Anyway,
So this
argument is that in the entire chapter 7, he essentially said two quotations from the Old Testament. One was that Moses said, "Honor thy father and mother," and then he says, "And whosoever curses the father and mother, let him die to death." Essentially, to make his point, he didn't need that second one. In other words, his point was, Moses said, honor thy father and mother. The Pharisees, you Pharisees have essentially allowed children not to honor their father and mother. Say, and so my argument is that because he said the second statement, which was really not necessary, he did not condemn it. He had a chance. He could have said, it said to curse the father and mother, let him die to death, but I say unto you, like he did for an eye for an eye, and a tooth for a tooth, but I say unto you, love thy neighbor as thyself.
Okay, let's... These are kind of fascinating details to go into. I can see how we can take this as an important point. If you are, for example, engaged with a Christian in some argument about the Bible as being a kind of legitimate moral authority, and I think, and that's a worthwhile debate to have, simply because you always do hear Christians claiming the Bible as the ultimate moral authority, and then you can just go through and then you point all of the reprehensible things that go on in the Bible that are justified by God.
But
Jesus.
then they always say, but that was the Old Testament.
Yeah, or that, or they do William Lane Craig's thing of saying that God has a morally sufficient reason for allowing horrible evil, but he doesn't go on to say what the morally sufficient reason is, because at that point then God conveniently becomes beyond our understanding, etc., etc., etc.
Right.
As an atheist, I sort of take the baseline approach that all of this is really kind of moot until we've proven a God exists in the first place. Because at this point, really, all you're doing is you're sort of having this big debate in the editorial department about how
That's
logically
true.
consistent
That's
the
true.
story
This is
is,
in the
right?
nitty-gritty.
And so talking about, I think the only real relevant, the thing that I think is the only relevant thing that you can say when you can point to examples of things in Scripture like this that are very morally dubious by at least our contemporary post-Enlightenment standards is that we can say about the Bible that it is the product of a pre-Enlightenment, pre-scientific, pre-humanistic, primitive, and extremely cruel culture. Right. That it is the product. It is the product of its day.
Right.
It is the product of a period in time not terribly far removed from when sickly, weak babies were exposed on rocks because they weren't good enough to be soldiers or worked on the farm. All of these slavery was a norm.
Right.
All of these things that were just part of the day-to-day experience of that period. The cultural works of those periods, like holy books, are going to reflect those standards. And so, to me, that's really all that you can really say about it. That this is how those people thought, and they thought it was okay. And we've really kind of moved beyond that, and we're constantly growing and evolving as moral beings.
Right.
So, once you have sort of established that, then wanting to get into the details about whether or not this particular verse contradicts that particular verse, yeah, that's really terrific. And it's a worthwhile debate to engage in with Christians simply to see what defenses they come up with. But
Right.
For me, just speaking as an atheist, yeah, show me that God exists first, and then we can talk about how moral his book is or isn't.
And then
we both,
once
at least we both
prove
agree.
that God exists, then you have to prove, well, which one is it? Allah,
Yeah,
Thor.
exactly.
I think we can at least all, the three of us, we can all say that we're on the same page in terms of that, we don't believe that the God exists and that this book is a moral authority, and take it from there. But yeah, they're interesting debates to have with Christians.
Right. Well, I was
Sort of fun.
I was hoping to get some support from Matt or anyway from your group.
Well, you'll have to go back in again and talk to him, because that's his decision. How he chooses to argue these things. And he is a guy with a background in the ministry, or was trained to be a minister. He has a background, and so he will have his approach to how he wants to respond to that. And so, so I guess call back and duke it out with him. I'm sure that'll make for an interesting show.
Okay, thank you very much.
Thanks, man.
Thanks. Okay, before we go to the next caller, I need to remind everyone that there is no show next week due to a studio preemption. So it's a fifth Sunday. We don't automatically get a fifth Sunday here, and so there will be no show next week. We will still have lunch at Cafe Express, and we don't go to El Arroyo if there's no show. So just a reminder to those of you local. Let's see. Also, speaking of El Arroyo, we will be at El Arroyo for the post-show dinner at about 6 p.m. tonight. So if you're in the Austin area and you'd like to join us for dinner, show up around 6 p.m. And with that, why don't we get to our next caller? Let's talk to Tammy.
Tammy.
Tammy in Grayson, Georgia.
Hi.
Hi. Tammy, what you want to do, there's a slight delay, so what you want to do is turn the audio down on your stream.
Yeah, mute your computer so we don't feedback.
Yeah.
Okay.
All right. Okay, so I understand you have a question for us.
Yes. What is your reason for choosing to be an atheist?
Well, I didn't choose to be an atheist. I became an atheist because theists have not met their burden of providing sufficient evidence for me to believe the claims that a God exists.
Okay. Well, then are you really an atheist or just someone that believes in science?
No, I actually believe that no gods exist.
That no gods exist?
Right.
But, so you don't, okay, so you don't believe in any gods exist, but you don't believe in, what is that religion called? You're not like a theist, someone that believes in science? Like, is that true?
I believe science works. It's the single best method we've ever devised for understanding the world.
Yeah, and that's an important distinction to make, right? Remember, science isn't a thing, right? Science describes a method of inquiry. Like, let's find out stuff. How are we going to find stuff out? How are we going to determine that the stuff we're finding out is true and not false? So that's what science is. It's not like a thing. Okay.
Yeah. And so actually, my atheism is in fact a logical byproduct of my skepticism and my application of the scientific method. So it was because of that that I actually investigated the claims of religion, including the religion that I was taught as a child, to determine if it was true or false. And what I discovered was that the claims that religion makes, specifically Christianity, simply didn't withstand much critical scrutiny. So I had to reject those beliefs.
Right. I definitely understand. I'm raised as a Christian, but I sometimes have difficulty, believing too.
Yeah.
You know what I mean? Yeah. But yeah, that's about all though.
Okay. Well, if you want to follow up, you can email us at tv@atheist-community.org. If you have any other questions or you want some more information, we'll be happy to address those for you.
Okay. Thank you.
Right.
Thanks, Tracy.
Bye.
Bye. All right.
You can get into these little semantic details a little bit too heavily. Basically, what she was asking us was, why don't you believe in any gods?
Yeah.
Which is a different thing, and it's helpful to sort of make that distinction of, being an atheist isn't like a thing you choose. It's just sort of, it's what you are if you don't believe in any gods.
Well, and on the screener's note here, it's got a, what's your reason for not believing in something? Well, I actually do believe in a lot of things. So just because you're an atheist doesn't mean you don't believe in anything. So I have a lot of beliefs. But
atheism is not nihilism. That's another confusion that's common.
Okay. So let's, I think we've got time for probably one more call here. So let's talk to Scott. Let's talk to Scott in Florida. Hello.
Yeah.
Scott?
Hey, Jen. Hey, Martin. Can you hear me?
Yeah, we hear you great.
Hey, yeah, I'm a lifelong atheist. I've been an atheist since I was 14, but sometimes I take abiogenesis for granted because we don't know all the answers. And I saw a good research or a documentary about some NASA researchers working in Mono Lake in California, and they were looking for bacteria that may or may not be part of our own biosphere, and they coined the term shadow biosphere because the bacteria replaced phosphorus for...
right.
Yeah, I forgot
arsenic.
Arsenic.
Arsenic
Right,
and phosphorus, yeah.
And life originated on Earth sometime after the Hadean epoch, but how come it seems that all life on our planet is related, and we're not seeing life forms that that have formed independently of our tree of life?
Well, I guess we don't know that other forms of life didn't form independently. It's just that those forms of life were obviously not successful.
Yeah,
right. And it just because I figured through genetic testing and I tried to find something on iron chariots about like shadow biospheres. I know that's not a proper term; it's just a term coined for that. But it seems like that everything we've tested is related to us genetically.
So far, that appears to be the case.
Mm-hmm.
Yeah, but and my if there's any, I just wanted to bring that point up because that's what rubs me the wrong way still about abiogenesis. And my second point, I'll make this quick because I know the show's almost over. Are you familiar with Dr. David Neiman?
No, I don't think so.
Can you spell his last name?
He's culturally Jewish. It's the late Dr. Neiman. He passed away in 2004. Please check him out if you can. There's some excerpts of lectures he did at a Jewish university in California, and he is the reason my wife finally deconverted from Christianity was listening to his explanations of the Old Testament and how perhaps the Garden of Eden story was an allegory for the tree was an allegory for the pain that humans experience in childbirth because of our large skull caps.
Okay.
But he was a good professor. He knows how to read Aramaic, or he did, the late Dr. Neiman. But yeah, just check him out if you get a chance.
Okay.
Yeah, well, read up on him, definitely. Thank you. Appreciate it.
Yeah, thanks.
All right. Thank you.
Man's got the
And
game going if he is just deconverting left and right. With
all right. Yeah, we'll
good.
find out what's up with that.
Yeah.
Here. Okay. Looks like Leonard. Hello, is this Leonard?
Leonard,
in Switzerland?
line 2.
Yeah, hello?
Hello.
Hear me?
Hi, you're on the air. We've got just a few minutes left.
Leonard, you're on. You have just a couple of minutes.
Okay, I hear you guys through the phone. Ustream, it's a bit late, actually.
Yeah, you need to turn the
my
volume
name is
down.
Leonard. I'm calling from Switzerland. Actually,
You hear me well?
Yes.
Yeah, if you turn your volume down, you'll be able to hear better.
No, actually, I muted, so you cannot hear from my laptop.
Well, anyway, what's your question?
Actually, not so much of the question. It's just some kind of thing that I wanted to share how we do things here in Europe and how I deal in daily basis. I run a hairdresser salon, and I discuss a lot of people every day, and my main topic is about how stupid it is to believe.
Really?
And here's one what I use often.
Okay.
Okay.
You hear me well?
Yeah.
Yep.
Yeah.
Well, the thing is that when people tell me, what, you don't believe in God? My thing is very simple. What is that? And they start to explain the way they want, you know, they imagine. And I say, when they're done, I say, so you're done? Yeah. Well, I'm sorry, I don't believe you. And they say, no, you don't have to believe me. You have to believe God. But I'm sorry, you are the source. I mean, you're telling me that. I never heard before. So if I believe that, I believe you. So what's the point? I don't believe you. I just don't believe you. The source. It's not God that I don't believe, but it is the source of it, which is all the time human being, always at all times. And then they don't know what to say, you know. Another religion or something like that. It's insane, and they get stuck, kind of, you know.
Yeah.
And with my mom, I have the same thing. For instance, I told her, well, just believing, it is a very bad idea, because believing is not knowing. So every time you believe, you give a chance people to use you. So you better say, you prove it, I accept it. So in other words, I usually say, I'm not a believer, I'm an acceptor. You can prove something to me, it doesn't matter how ridiculous, how nonsense it is. If you prove it to me, I'll be the first to accept. But to believe, hell no. Some small thing like that would be.
Yeah, okay. All right, we get you. We get you.
You know, the biggest question in the world.
Okay, well, we're almost out of time here, so I'm going to have to let you go. But thanks for the call.
Appreciate it.
Right.
Yeah.
And actually, people get glitched up on the word belief, but belief simply means to accept a claim as true. So you don't have to have proof.
And you can have good
like
reasons for believing a thing, or bad reasons for believing a thing, or no reasons for believing a thing, and that's all just the scale of how rational you're being.
Yeah.
So.
And we're almost out of time here, so thanks for joining us, everyone, for another episode of the Atheist Experience. Again, we'll be at El Arroyo in about a half an hour, so please join us if you're in the Austin area. And again, no show next week. And I guess, you know what, my countdown clock is wrong. I think I actually have an extra minute.
Yeah, I think we can take Patrick very quickly, but it's going to have to be fast.
Let's
on
go
line
quickly.
3.
Oh, it's on line 3.
Yeah.
Never mind. Hi, Patrick. You got less than a minute here.
Hi.
Hi.
Name's Patrick. Come from Long Beach. How am I supposed to? I got this friend who, like, we do Bible study and whatnot. How am I supposed to continue being friends with him, because he keeps trying to say, you know, you gotta believe in God, whatnot, God's gonna save you. I'm trying to tell him, like, you know, is this really gonna save you? Is this really the book of God from a piece of paper? Now, what am I supposed to do here?
Yeah. Well, you know, if he's being a jerk about it to the point where you don't think he can be his friend anymore, then that's just how that works. But I would say keep arguing, keep pushing back on whatever he hands you, and demand good evidence.
Yeah.
Thanks.
With that, we really are out of time.
Bye.
Bye.